the passion in politics today is not about left or right or capitalism or socialism. Politics is about single issues. It might be human cloning. It might be black empowerment. It could be genetically modified food. It could be global warming. Whatever it is, single issues are where you will find passion. And that's why companies are taking single issues so seriously. Because you can walk into Nigeria, believe me, you can walk into the UK, you can have a discussion about energy policy in the country and come away with a verbal understanding with the head of government, and it's worth nothing. Why? Even a written agreement is worth very little, because if something changes in the world, if SABC gets hold of the story, if CNN starts driving on it, if Greenpeace gets hold of it, then you believe me, before very long, the government will start to legislate and your company will have to change policy and your clients will change policy. Because every single issue tends to lead to regulation, and regulation affects business. It creates opportunities and closes down others. Now, of course, if you were to say, what is the biggest single issue, Patrick, that's going to hit us over the next 2 decades, it has to be the issue of sustainability. And I mean that widely. I'm not just talking about environment, I'm talking about personal sustainability. I'm talking about family sustainability. I'm talking about emotional sustainability. I'm talking about political sustainability. It's more than just a biological thing about diversity of species or how much rainfall there'll be in South Africa in the next decade. Now, this graph shows some science. I think the science is sound. I've looked at the Antarctic records of carbon dioxide and temperature, which is a complicated function of the isotopes of hydrogen, which you can correlate with ice ages. And it goes back 750,000 years, this data. And I've looked at it closely. I'm utterly convinced that we are experiencing man-made, woman-made global warming on a significant scale, and it requires a major response. But even if you don't agree with me, it's irrelevant. I said the future is not about science, it's not about grass, it's about emotion. And the fact is that there's a huge emotional connection in the public worldwide with this issue, and that is going to drive some of the biggest business opportunities your clients have ever seen in history. Why? Because it's just about everything to do with energy. I'll just give you one example. This computer is working on solar power right now, and I flew here on water power. I flew to Joburg on water power, and it cost me it cost me $20 extra to convert to a water powered ticket. Of course, I'm talking about offsets. I'm talking about investing my company, working out how much carbon I would use and how much carbon my wife would use with cooking or us with our washing up machine, how much carbon I'd use with the wax making the wax to polish my shoes, my total carbon use, and then putting all of that money to offset that into a hydroelectric plant in some developing country, maybe on a very small river, which doesn't make any sense economically whatsoever, because it needs a 30% subsidy to work. So we put $2,000 in there or something towards that. It becomes economically viable. Someone like Siemens is very happy at having yet another hydroelectric contract. The community are very happy to go water powered. They stop using all their carbon, and I claim a carbon credit, which I can offset against my travel. And this is an absolutely vast business for the future. You're going to see water-powered airlines. HSBC is the world's first solar-powered bank. You're going to see banks go solar-powered. I mean, why couldn't you? Dimension Data, you could decide to become the world's first totally energy-neutral IT company. Why not? It costs nothing. I mean, it would cost you something like £5 or something to make sure that all the equipment in this room is completely carbon neutral for 3 years. I mean, it really doesn't cost much. What I'm saying is you're going to see an explosion of all kinds of creative schemes to save energy, trade energy, and do just about anything with it, and every one of your clients will be involved. Now, why is it important with IT? Let me tell you why. Did you know that more than 10% of the entire energy consumption of the world's most energy-greedy country is PCs? 10% at least. It's sometimes, I think it's 15%, depending on the time of year, of the entire output of all the new power stations in America is simply driving screens, inefficient chips, and just about everything else. The new plasma screens, these are ridiculously unfriendly environmentally. If you look at the energy cost from an ordinary TV, a vacuum last century, 19th century valve, to one of these things, there's no comparison. The amount of heat generated off the back, that's why these things are so thick. It's red hot behind here. And you know these boomer plasma screens. These are big, big issues. Watch out for them.